have you seen an increase in interest from financial folks around this ESG theme, and what impact do you think that's going to have in the long run?
Oh, yeah, but I'll say so there's absolutely been an increase in ESG. As you say, BlackRock kind of led the way in some of those announcements and some of the changes in their portfolio management, which then set the tone for others. I guess in similar ways, some of the ways that some industries work, like Walmart does something in the retail industry, and therefore everybody else kind of all the other retailers kind of have to fall in line. And I think that is happening right now with ESG. So there's sort of that tipping point that I was alluding to when I started about supply chain being the tipping point, where this has been coming on. All these technologies have been evolving for decades, and costs have been coming down for decades. But now with the ESG has been stemming for decades. I wrote a book in 2016, I think, called "The High Cost of Low Prices." It was about a supply chain view, how to account for. It's basically ESG kind of focused book on supply chains. And at that time, even really the interest was marginal, I would say. But in the last few years, and particularly with the incoming U.S. administration changing the tone, saying now we're going to have like trillions of dollars, sort of suddenly invested in infrastructure and an energy, clean energy, that really does seem like we've passed a tipping point.
Alok, do you have anything to add to that you've seen in related to the ESG theme and financialization?
Yes, and I would comment from the perspective of the impact of the pandemic, because what pandemic has really done is that it has really made these big institutions think hard in terms of where to put their money, and uh, you know, renewable energies is definitely emerging as the winner going forward. And that's the reason a lot of financial resource allocation is happening there. And especially if you look at the behemoths, I would say oil and gas behemoths like Total, Shell, if the amount of investments they've started to make in renewable energy is testimony to the fact that financial resource mobilization is definitely happening in that direction, because ultimately it will flow in from financial institutions, and I can really sense that going forward, and that kind of a sort of those institutions who were really who were really at the threshold and kind of confused whether to go in right now or not. I guess pandemic has forced them to take clear cut decisions in terms of what they should do and what the strategy should be for the for the next few years. And definitely renewable energy is attracting a lot of investments.
No, that's absolutely for sure. And I agree with you, David, about the tipping point, because I got into the industry back in 2009, and a lot of the finance folks we talked to said, forget about energy. It takes too long to get your money back. It wasn't an exciting area. There was a negative connotation around this phrase, clean tech. A lot of venture capitalists had lost lots of money investing in it, and it was just not popular. And then it was, for those that have been around a while, it's like all of a sudden it seems everybody in the world wants a piece of the energy market, and it only happened in like the last 6 months. So it did definitely hit a tipping point.
I share your historical story. When I was a kid, my parents bought stock in Philadelphia Electric Company, which was called Pico at the time, and it earned like a 2 to 4% annual return based on dividend payout. And the world has transformed now, and so that same company, after multiple acquisitions, is now like a unicorn. It's like it's a star performer.
Wow,
it is unbelievable. Yes, it's the world has changed dramatically, I would say, and it was a long time coming, but I think tipping point is often overused, but in this case, it's exactly the right word. Right. Because it's kind of like we were pushing a boulder up a hill, and then it was like all of a sudden, you never know where the top is, and then all of a sudden the boulder starts going fast down the hill, and it kind of feels like that's what happened.
Peter, on that note, can I share something very quickly?
For sure. We have no time limits here.
Fantastic. And when you're engaging with passionate people like David and I, we tend to get carried away. So
I love it.
Slow us down,
I love
okay?
it.
So, a very stark example and observation from India. So, the government had sort of tried to create a lot of incentive programs to encourage investments in renewable energy, solar, wind, etc., and said that there would be tax benefits, there would be subsidies to XYZ extent, and so on and so forth. Um, some incentives were implemented and some were not because of whatever inefficiencies in the system, etc. However, uh, almost 80%, at least 70% people who are investing in solar, for example, and majority of consultants who are helping them um, look at the feasibility are not even considering these subsidies. Despite that, the inclination to invest in renewable energy is so high because the break even is happening much before than it would happen even 5 years ago. And so that's the point, right? The way these renewable energy technologies are becoming so competitive is that people are not even caring about the incentive programs. They're still going in and investing. So that's so now we are really seeing the real virtues of renewable energy manifesting in real terms.
No, and it is exciting. I went to school for economics as well,
Mhm.
and to me, it's a perfect use of the government when you're essentially taking something that is, to use an economics word, a negative externality, and
Yeah.
you're incentivizing it against it. I think it's an intelligent use of government. I'm not a big believer in many uses of government that are used. Not to get political, but I think this was absolutely the perfect use of government in, let's say, incentivizing against negative externality. So I think it's great. And now we're seeing exactly what you're saying. We're getting to cost parity a lot faster than we otherwise would have been able to do if the government wasn't involved. So it's great stuff. For more energy superheroes with Peter Perry, visit energy.media.